Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here. We're just going to wait a couple more minutes for a few more people to arrive, and then we'll get started. Well, hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us on this Friday afternoon. My name is Cam Scott, and I'm Manager of Community Planning here at the District of Saanich. I'm part of the team here that will be providing you a bit of a presentation on the Shelbourne Valley Action Plan update. So just to let you know, we're in the fairly early stages of this process, and this is an opportunity for us to share some initial information, identify some ways that you can be involved in the process, and provide an opportunity for you to ask questions. I'd like to begin by our territory acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the District of Saanich lies within the territories of the Lekwungen people, represented by the Songhees and Esquimalt nations, and the Wasanich, represented by the Sartlip, Pakwajin, Sayout, Sycam, and Malahat nations. So before turning it over to my colleague Abiola to give you a presentation, I'm just going to go through a couple of logistics for the webinar. Firstly, talk about the purpose, Really, it's to provide background and context on the Shelbourne Valley Action Plan update. Why are we doing this? What's informing the update and what's going to be happening? And providing you an opportunity to ask questions at this stage of the process, and then sharing some information on avenues where you can find more information and participate in the plan update. So there's a couple of members of our planning team here today. There's myself, Abiola Falae is the planner who will be leading the update of the Shelbourne Valley Action Plan and will be giving you the presentation today. And then we have Alana McDonough, our senior planner, and Adam Smith, our planning analyst, who will be helping deliver the webinar today. One thing before I turn it over to Abiola. So this is more of a webinar style format where we're primarily going to be receiving questions in a written format. So if you have kind of clarifying questions or you're having technical difficulties, you can use the chat at the top. But if you'd like to present a question that you would like staff to answer, there's a Q&A feature at the top of your screen that you can utilize to ask questions. So you can type in anything kind of throughout the presentation, and then we'll answer the questions at the end. A couple things when you click on that Q&A button, there'll be a window that pops up on the side. And one thing that we ask you to do is there's a little icon here, and it defaults to start a discussion. If you can click that and just go to ask a question, that would be the preference for that. Another thing with those questions, you're either able to submit them with your name, or you can choose to be anonymous as part of that. One last thing with the questions, you can also upvote people's questions. So if someone's asking a question that's similar to yours, you can click on the thumbs up button here by that question to have it answered more quickly. So the questions with more upvotes we will be getting to quicker. We should be able to get through questions in this presentation time frame, but if there's any that are outstanding, we'll make sure to post responses of those to the website. I see there's a hand up. One thing is, if you have any questions, our preference is that you type those in the chat, and then we can provide a response. And there's a question around why are cameras and mics turned off. Given that this is less of a kind of workshop format, is more of a webinar. It's just a standard feature of how we do that, and we'd have the discussion at the end. So with that, I will turn it over to Abiola Falae, who will be giving you the overview presentation prior to us getting into questions. So over to you, Abiola.
Thank you very much, Cam, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Abiola Falae, and I'm a planner with the District of Saanich. I will be leading the updates of the Shelbourne Valley Action Plan. Just a brief overview before I go into the detail of the presentation. I'll talk about the background to the Shelbourne Valley Action Plan, and then outline some of the outcomes of the plan in the last 7 years. Then I'll proceed to talk about the update that is to take place between that have started already and is to continue until the month of July in 2025, all things being equal. There's also going to be discussion about the process and the timeline for this update before I move on to give you additional information on what to expect in this phase of the plan update, which is the evaluation phase. As a brief introduction, the Shelbourne Valley Action Plan was adopted in the year 2017, and it was following several engagements with the public to develop the goals, outline the visions, and to develop policies collaboratively towards achieving a 30-year strategy for land use and transportation in the Shelbourne Valley area. And the Shelbourne Valley Corridor is one of the significant areas within the District of Saanich, as it serves as a connection between the city of Victoria and Saanich, and it is one of the north-south connections that is regularly plied within the district. It provides connection to the University of Victoria. There are significant features in the area, such as Mount Tolmie, close to the area. There's also Camosun College, which is a popular educational institution around the area. And down south, we have the Hillside Shopping Mall that serves as the boundary of the study area where it connects to the city of Victoria. Other features are the Cedar Hill Golf Course, among several others. In 2017, 8 goals were outlined following engagements with the public, and the goal covers issues around protecting and restoring the natural environment, addressing issues on climate change, developing a vibrant and attractive centers and villages, accommodating all ages within effective transportation system, enhance opportunity for active transportation, improve housing choice and affordability, strengthening the network of community spaces and facilities, as well as enhancing sense of place within the Shelbourne Valley area. And in 2017, when this plan was developed, 3 centers were identified, and this includes the University Center, the Shelbourne Valley Center, and the Hillside Center. In addition to this is a village up north, which is the Feltham village. And these four significant geographies kind of inform the decisions that were made in terms of land use in 2017 when the plan was developed. Um, in 2017, when the plan was initially adopted, it focused land use designations within the first blocks on along the Shelbourne corridor. And although this map is tilted in the wrong direction so as to maximize the layout of the PowerPoint presentation, towards my right is Feltham Village, which is up north, and on the left is the Hillside Center, which ought to be down south. And 5 land use designations were identified at that time when this map was initially adopted. One of the prominent ones is the mixed use and commercial uses that supports development up to 6 stories. We also have apartment land uses which support development up to 4 stories. There's designation for townhouses, and there's also recognition of institutional and parklands within the study area. And this kind of summarize the extent to which land use designation were designed at that time when the plan was initially adopted. Over the years of the adoption of this plan, there has been several outcomes in terms of the various goals that were outlined. Regarding the environment and climate, the plan has been able to successfully outline some policies that have supported the retention of trees and planting of new trees within the study area. The study area is identified to have some historically significant trees like the Gary oak as well as London plane trees, which this plan has outlined policies to support the existence of them and preservation for the future. In addition to this, the plan also addressed urban forest and the Balco Creek objectives by outlining policies to support the actions. In addition to this, the plan also made a bold step by proposing a short-term mobility action which supports active transportation along the Shelbourne corridor. And this project is currently ongoing. And the eventual result of this project is that on the long run, when people get more active, there is reduction in the emission of greenhouse gases as a result of reduced vehicular transit. In terms of housing, we have received 21 applications in the last 7 years since the plan was adopted. And in line with the plan's land use designations, a significant amount of these applications received were apartment buildings, providing variety of housing options and affordability for residents of Saanich. The plan has also received, in out of those 21 applications received, 17 of them had been completed, and upon development and occupancy, we expect that additional 1,751 units will be provided within the district of Saanich, thereby addressing our housing shortage. Regarding economy, the plan also provided policies that support mixed-use development, and by so doing, it provides additional space to cater for offices within the study area, as well as retail stores, among other commercial activities to boost the center and make it even more vibrant. We have also seen some improvement in terms of community spaces and facilities. Two notable ones are the Cedar Hill Middle School as well as the Nellie McClung Public Library. These two community spaces are currently being upgraded, And upon completion, the Nellie McClung Library, in particular, will provide additional housing on top of the improved library facility. Signage also have a community amenity contribution policy, which allows council staff, developers, and the public to make decisions on rezoning application in terms of the amenity contribution that is accrued to it. And within this plan area, over the last 7 years, we have received 17 completed applications, which has contributed over $3 million to the amenity contribution fund. And this fund has been distributed across various pockets, including the Balco Creek Restoration Fund, the Parkland Acquisition Reserve Fund, Capital Works Reserve Fund, Transportation Improvement, Public Realm and Public Health, as well as affordable housing, among others. And this is part of the outcomes of the policies that were outlined in the Shelbourne Valley Action Plan in 2017. On top of that, the plan document also provided policies and actions to enhance mobility for various demographics and ability within the study area. A significant one is a Shelbourne Street Improvement Project, which is currently in its third phase. This project involves upgrade to road infrastructure, introduction of new street lights at various intersections, um, introduction of new sidewalk, underground infrastructure upgrade, among others, to enhance active transportation along the Shelbourne corridor and adjoining streets. So this project was phased into 3 stages. Phase one being from Garnet Road onto Torquay Drive, and the next phase from North Dairy to Pierre Street. And currently, we are in the third phase of the project that is covering Pierre Street to Garnet Road. And this project is aimed to be completed by the year 2026. In addition to improvement along the Shelbourne streets, we have also seen improvement on the side streets, including Mortimer Street, where we have new sidewalk. On Jennifer Road and Doncaster Drive, there's also new traffic calming facilities and safety enhancements that is being implemented. Besides all of this, there's also enhancement to the sense of space and the identity in the Shelbourne Valley. And the plan achieved this through outlining policies to support heritage conservation and planting of new London plane trees on the Shelbourne streets. And this is part of implementation that is being proposed when we receive new development applications. Okay, so at this point of the presentation, we'll take a quick short break just to engage with the participants. And we have a poll question here. We just want to know how, if we have some members present today who participated in the development of the 2017 action plan. So the question is on the screen, and we have the opportunity to use the chat section of the webinar to cast our votes. If you participated in any of the previous engagements in the 2017 action plan, please indicate by selecting yes. And if you did not participate, please indicate by selecting no. This gives us an idea of the number of persons that we had in the last planning process, and those that are not familiar with the planning process, at all. So the poll is now on our screen. Okay, so I'll move on with the presentation. Okay, so the poll is now completed, and we have 38 persons indicated that they participated. 38% participated in the last engagement, and 61 did not participate in any of the engagement for the 2017 Shelbourne Action Plan. Yeah, that sounds good. So we have a couple of persons who are familiar with the process already, which is good. So moving on, we the present.
Abiola, just your screen sharing stopped, so you just have to reshare your presentation.
Oh, thanks, Cam. All right. Apologies for that technical glitch. Um, Moving on with the Shelbourne Valley Action Plan strategic update. In the last 7 years since the plan had been adopted, a lot has changed, which informed the need to update the plan to meet the current trend. One most significant one is the new signage land use framework that had been adopted through the official community plan. There's also improved housing need information as well as provincial housing mandate. I will discuss this in further details in the subsequent slides. There's also been demographic and market changes, which has informed the need to review land uses and land use policies within that area. There are also recently adopted and ongoing municipal initiatives, plans, and trends that inform the plan that needs to be accommodated in the updates. And besides that, Council also provided strategic direction to review and assess the need for 5-year updates to our center, corridor, and village plans, with the Shelbourne Valley Action Plan happens to be one of them. The key objectives of this updates would include to assess the progress made in implementing the goals of the 2017 plan. It will involve identifying trends, issues, and regulatory changes that are affecting the plan's implementation, and then we'll move on to determine changes to resolve implementation issues and ensure alignment with the official community plan. In addition to that, address priority planning actions for from other recently adopted, updated, or ongoing initiatives. For the purpose of this update, the study area is largely maintained as it is from the 2017 Shelbourne Valley Action Plan. However, there will be consideration for new areas for land use examination, and these areas is what we have outlined in blue in the map on our screen. While the 2017 plan limited land use and height designation to the first block along the Shelbourne streets, including parcels around the centers and the villages, uh, the update that is ongoing now will consider additional areas that fall within the blue boundary for new land use designations. And the process of the update will also be relating with the public to examine the appropriateness of this boundary, whether it needs to be shifted a little bit or adjusted. These are discussions that we'll be having during this phase of the Shelbourne Valley Action Plan update. The area is divided into 4 sub-areas according to the 2017 plan. The first sub-area being the Feltham village, and that extends from around Blair Avenue up north to near Feltham Road. The second sub-area that will be considered here is the Shelbourne Valley Centre, and that shares boundary with the Shelbourne Mackenzie Centre, which is currently being planned for under the Quadra Mackenzie plan. I will discuss that in further detail in subsequent slides. The fourth center that will be considered, that is the third sub-area, is the Hillside Center, and that is further down north of the study area, and it shares boundary with the city of Victoria. Having mentioned these 3 sub-areas, it is important to note that the Quadra Mackenzie Center, which is also included in this study area, is considered out of scope of this strategic update. This is being that the Shelbourne Mackenzie Center is currently being planned for under the Quadra Mackenzie plan. As a result, any changes to land use within the Shelbourne Mackenzie Center will be determined under the Quadra Mackenzie plan. and the Shelbourne Valley Action Plan updates will not influence or change any decision that had been made within the center. Presently, the Quadra McKinsey plan is in its draft plan stage, and the public have had the opportunity to provide input, and they still have more opportunity to engage in the plan development before it finally goes to council. So all decisions or all inquiries regarding planning within this area will be deferred to the Quadra McKinsey plan and not addressed under the Shelbourne Valley Action Plan. Another item that is out of scope of this plan, even though it is within the study area, is the Shelbourne Street Improvement Project. This multi-year transportation improvement project is currently ongoing, and it has a blueprint that it is following and working with to be completed in the year 2026. As a result, any comment or feedback or inquiry that we receive in the course of the Shelbourne Valley Action Plan update with regards to the Shelbourne Street Improvement Project will be deferred to the appropriate department that is handling this project. And the update or changes to the Shelbourne Valley Action Plan will not in any way influence the Shelbourne Street Improvement Project. However, the Shelbourne Valley Action Plan will take recommendations and updates its mobility section appropriately based on the improvement that had been done through the Shelbourne Street Improvement Project. And also on the slide, I have the website for those various projects where we can find additional information, which is also, and these links are also provided on on the Shelbourne Valley Action Plan for that reading. Moving forward, there are several policy contexts that influence the changes to this plan or that would inform updates that will take place in the course of the planning process. The most significant one being the official community plan that was recently adopted. And the official community plan sets out 4 key directions for land use within the district of Saanich. The first being to maintain the urban containment boundary, and secondly, to accommodate most new developments in primary growth areas. The third is to expand housing diversity in neighborhoods, and the fourth being to make Saanich a 15-minute community. In order to ensure that the natural ecosystem in Saanich is conserved and that we achieve our climate goals, Saanich had outlined um, a boundary where development should take place, and that is the urban containment boundary. And it's try to focus most of the development within this boundary. And within the urban containment boundary, the OCP also have identified primary growth areas where most of the new developments will take place. The Shelbourne Valley Action Plan area is one of the primary growth areas that has been identified within the OCP framework. And this primary growth area identified 3 centers and a village where most of the developments will be focused. And within this primary growth area, the update seeks to ensure that there is diversity of housing that is provided and there is a good reasonable transition from the center corridor and the village to the neighborhoods. Um, Besides that, in order to maximize the goal of achieving CO2 reduction, emission reduction within the district, one of the key objectives is to make Saanich a 15-minute community where we have mixed housing, public transit, as well as various recreational facilities and natural areas within 15 minutes walk for every resident, thereby reducing our dependency on automobile. And building on the Shelbourne Street, which is a major frequent transit corridor in the district of Saanich, the plan updates will ensure that most development are focused there, and then most of there's a proper transition from this corridor to the adjoining neighborhoods. This speaks more to what a center, a corridor, and a village is. So within the study area, that we have identified here. Feltham Village is one village that has been identified, and a village serves as a neighborhood serving activity area that meets a range of basic commercial and service needs for with medium housing density. So the plan update will explore the various types of housing densities that can be accommodated within the Feltham village. Uh, in addition to that, there will also be discussions around what kind of opportunities for housing can we have within the centers, including the Shelbourne Valley Center and the Hillside Center. I would like to re-emphasize that the University Center is already being addressed under the Cordra McKinsey plan. There will also be discussions around the corridors, which is the primary residential areas with limited mixed use, linked to sustainable transportation, allowing greater heights near centers and corridors. So discussions around the appropriate transition and density in these three geographies will form the key parts of the engagements that will be taking place during the course of the update. In addition to that, another policy context that is going to influence these updates is the housing strategy. Signage adopted a new housing strategy in 2021, and that provides additional information in terms of our housing need and how to achieve our housing goal. On top of that, there's also the provincial housing guideline for signage, which seeks that signage provide additional 4,610 net new units in the next 5 years. The Shelbourne Valley Action Plan area is one of the significant primary growth areas in Saanich where this future additional housing can be accommodated. So the engagements will involve interacting with the public and also looking at the ways which we can achieve our housing targets within the primary growth area. The Development Permit Area Guideline was also adopted in the year 2024. While the Shelbourne Valley Action Plan have a section on urban design, this Development Permit Guideline was adopted to cater for development in the entire district of Saanich, and it builds upon some of the ideas that the Shelbourne Valley Action Plan had already outlined. And the intent of this guideline is to communicate design expectations for residential, commercial, and industrial, as well as mixed use projects to facilitate fair and consistent applications of design objectives and to foster design excellence and sustainability throughout the district. We will also be tapping into the Balco Creek initiative. Some of the work done under the Balco Creek initiative includes the daylighting feasibility study, as well as the current update that is ongoing, and 99% of it has been completed. So some of the recommendations and the actions that have been outlined within these documents that are relevant to the Shelbourne Valley area, where we have the Balco Creek flowing both underground and unchanneled, will be adopted to ensure that we protect this natural ecosystem. Similar to that, the climate plan, which was adopted in 2020, also set out goals for reducing greenhouse gas emission, moving towards renewable energy, and preparing for climate change. Key actions that needs to be implemented through this plan includes mobility, building an infrastructure, sustainable food and materials, improved ecosystem and protection, community well-being, and leading by example by the district. So some of those things are the actions that the climate plan have outlined. And through the update to the Shelbourne Valley Action Plan, we will be adopting some of these recommendations and using them to inform better policies to achieve sustainable development within the study area. We also have the active transportation plan that was adopted in the year 2024. And the intent is to shift from vehicular transport to more active transport, including transit, walking, and cycling. Currently, transportation is one of the major contributor, is the greatest contributor to CO2 emission within the district of Saanich. And the goal is that 2050, we are able to reduce our vehicular transits from 77% to 50%, and we have more people jumping, using transit facilities as well as walking and cycling. The conservation strategy was also adopted in 2024 as part of the Resilient Signage program. And this provides a roadmap to protect, connect, and enhance biodiversity through policies, operations, and public stewardship. The network of biodiversity within the district, some of them have been identified within the Shelbourne Valley Action Plan area. and the updates will ensure that changes to land use ensures that there is a balance between our biodiversity and future changes in terms of new developments. The urban forest strategy, which was also adopted earlier this year, also set out a target for signage in terms of its canopy cover, and it looks forward to achieving 44% canopy cover by 2064 in the district. And 30% of this canopy cover is expected to be within the primary growth areas. So the goal of achieving 3 trees close to every home, at 30% canopy cover in every neighborhood, and having every resident living at least 300 meters from the nearest park or green space will also be one of the targets that the Shelbourne Valley Action Plan updates will try to integrate in future land use changes. So ideas as to how we can balance future development to ensure that we create more room for parks development and tree retention and ensure that the development is all encompassing of all of these features are part of the key issues that will be addressed through the strategic update to the Shelbourne Valley Action Plan. The update is divided into 5 phases, and currently we are in the second phase. The initial phase started in September and it extended out to October, and that was more of staff getting ready and interaction with the council towards getting the terms of reference approved. Earlier in September, a terms of reference was approved, and it gave us the direction to proceed with this process. Currently, the second phase, we will be evaluating the plan, and some of the key issues that will be addressed are what I've just discussed earlier on, looking at the various policy frameworks that informs the plan and influence the various decisions that we'll be making in terms of future land use directions. In the third phase, which is this phase is expected to continue until January next year, and then we'll move into the third phase, which is the plan update. Um, after the second phase, we will prepare a draft plan that will be presented to the public for review and refinement. Um, the plan update, the draft updated plan, um, excuse me, at the end of the plan evaluation phase, all the feedback received will inform the development of a draft plan, and a draft plan preparation will occur in the third phase. At the end of the third phase, a draft plan will be ready and will be presented to the public in the fourth phase for review and refinement. The public in the fourth phase, we have another opportunity to look at the plan, make changes, and suggest any idea towards what should be in the proposed updated plan. At the end of the fourth phase, a proposed updated plan will be ready and presented to council for consideration. In this phase of the project, which is the plan evaluation phase, we are looking forward to gather feedback from the public and stakeholders on the assessment of the plan. We want to identify and address key issues to achieve the plan goals and to review and gather ideas for future land use designations. Some of the areas that we'll be exploring in the plan evaluation stage includes to review the areas outlined for land use change, to explore housing options within walking distance of the Shelbourne Street, to discuss potential ideas for development around the Balco Creek, to consider new housing options near parks, to identify areas to expand commercial uses in the center and villages, to discuss how to connect higher density areas to surrounding neighborhoods, and identify priority improvements in each sub-area. Throughout the process, there will be opportunity to engage and lend your voice to the development of the updated plan. In the second phase, that is the plan evaluation phase that we're currently in, there will be webinar sessions, which one of them is currently holding now. Another webinar session will be held next week, Tuesday at 7 p.m. There are 2 open house events. The first one will be on Thursday, next week, November 21st, and another webinar section on the 26th of November. There will be an online survey that will be launched and will be available for a reasonable period of time for participants to be able to lend their voice. There will be meeting with stakeholders, including community associations, housing providers, among all other interested parties in the plan and the study area. Updates will be provided online through the project website and Elo Signage engagement platform, including our social media networks. And we'll also provide email notifications. And we encourage everyone to follow the project on the Elo Signage page in order to be able to receive this email notifications that indicates some of the progress that has been made in the process. In the subsequent phase as well, there will be opportunities to engage. The same level of engagement will be available in the fourth phase when the plan will be reviewed and refined with the public. There's limited engagement in the third phase, as that will be the phase when all the ideas gathered from the second phase will be used to develop a draft plan. And in the fifth phase, that is when a proposed draft plan will be presented to council for consideration. Yeah, we just have a summary of the engagement schedule, which I have mentioned in the previous slide. On Friday, um, today, we are having the first webinar session, and on Tuesday, we will have another webinar session, also on Teams between the hours of 7 and 8:30 p.m. There will be open house events, which is a drop-in event. You can come in within the hours of 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. Registration is not a requirement to attend any of these events. The first one will be held at St. Luke Cedar Hill Anglican Church, and we're specifically using the auditorium, not the church, but the auditorium behind the church. And on Tuesday, we will be at the Garden Head Recreation Center, the multipurpose room to be precise, between the hours of 3 p.m. and 9 p.m. And we'll be receiving feedback from the public and discussing the plan further. An online survey will also be launched on Monday, and the public will also have the opportunity to lend their voice through that means. To learn more about the project, we have two web pages that we work with. The first being the project website, and you can access that by going on the Signage website /SVP. Here you see a summary of all of the events that is taking place, and as well as other resource materials, including frequently asked questions, among other things. That page and also take you to the next page, which is the Elo Signage page. And you can also access that Elo Signage page directly by scanning the QR code on your screen. The Elo Signage page is the official engagement page of the District of Signage, and it is from this page that will send out notifications, and you get to see updates as the plan progresses. We encourage everyone to log in to the Elo Signage page and click the follow button so that you can get updates on this particular project. That brings me to the end of the presentation. Now we will have opportunity to participate in another poll. Poll question being that how would you like to stay informed on the Shelbourne Valley Action Plan update? We have several options to choose from. Would you prefer to check updates on the website as well as the Elo Signage page, or via social media, newspaper, household mailers, updates from community association, or all of the above? Thank you. I'll give the audience a few minutes to respond to the poll. Right now we have 10 responses. Yeah, you can continue to respond to the poll, and that brings me to the end of the presentation today. Now we'll move into the question and answer segment. The question and answer segments will run until the end of the allotted meeting time today. We will look through all the questions that you have submitted through the Q&A button, and we'll begin to respond to them, based on how you've upvoted them. Thank you so much, and it's a pleasure presenting this to you.
Thanks so much, Abiola. So Abiola and I are going to kind of work through the questions and hopefully answer the majority of them. Yeah, maybe just to say, like, just to reemphasize a couple of the points that Abiola mentioned, we are fairly early on in the process here, so if there's key issues, it's really important that we hear about them now, or things you want more information on. Um, so that's part of this process, and being able to hear from you, kind of what those key issues are. Another thing that we're really trying to do is try to keep these plans current. This plan was developed, and if we don't have the ability to update it regularly, then it can become out of date as the world around us changes pretty rapidly. So this is a great opportunity to not redo the whole plan, but really look at it in a in a more focused way to allow us to update it to ensure it responds to our new plans, policies, and community needs. So the first question that's posed here is, what plans are being put in place for traffic calming and safety on Richmond Road between Cedar Hill Crossroad and Lansdowne? The road has become the new Shelbourne with constant traffic, large trucks, speeding, and noise. So it's a good question. I fully acknowledge that the last number of years has been probably very challenging for the folks that live in and near the Shelbourne Valley. The construction on Shelbourne Street um, and other roads for that matter in the area has definitely impacted traffic, bus, pedestrian, cycling traffic. So totally acknowledge that. There's been a lot of replacement of all the underground infrastructure, which will pay dividends in the future, but the short-term impacts are substantial. So a couple things with that question in terms of Richmond Road, and will there be traffic coming? Firstly, I think once Shelbourne Street is completed, there'll be an opportunity for some of the traffic to renormalize and maybe move more volume back to that route, have more efficient transit service and that as well. Um, so there's that point. I think that will hopefully ameliorate some of the issues on both Richmond and Cedar Hill. Um, Secondly, on Richmond Road, there's no major improvements planned. There are some improvements planned for the crosswalk at night and Richmond. So that's one of the areas where there's some opportunity to improve safety there. But it is one of our major roads, so there will continue to be some level of traffic on there. The next question is, will Sandwich consider maintaining 4 lanes of vehicle traffic between Cedar Hill Crossroad and Mackenzie Avenue rather than narrowing to 3 lanes, which will result only to two through lanes and considerable congestion, as has occurred on Cedar Hill Crossroad either side of Shelbourne. So for Shelbourne Street, and some of you that may have been familiar with the process that was undertaken as part of the Shelbourne Valley Action Plan, there was a really extensive process to look at all the different options for how the road will change both in the short term and the long term. So the long term plan is to have 4 vehicle lanes on Shelbourne Street. In the shorter term, with the narrow right of way, there are some areas where we need to make trade offs. The pathway to have 4 lanes everywhere is for redevelopment to occur and provide dedications of space. So if you're looking at that area between Cedar Hill Crossroad and Mackenzie, a good example of that is the new development near Stockton and Garnet, where they were able to dedicate a space, and then the bike lane was able to be moved behind the curbs, kind of keeping that ability to maintain 4 lanes. So as that happens, there is the ability to keep 4 lanes, but certainly in the shorter term, there will be some segments that are down to 3 lanes. Also importantly, this is part of that Shelbourne Street improvements projects where it's out of the scope for this particular process, and those improvements have already been decided and funded by council. A quick question here is, will the plan become part of the OCP? So yes, that's the intention right now, is that the center corridor and village plans will be part of the OCP. That's ultimately a decision that council will make when we bring the plan forward for adoption. Plans like the Uptown Douglas plan are currently part of the OCP bylaw, and that's the intention with these plans going forward. So I think the next question is to you, Abiola.
Okay, I have a question here regarding where are the new parks to accommodate all the additional population, especially as building multi-story housing with no yards. So the district of Saanich have some a park acquisition priority guide that is currently being developed and considered. And as part of that acquisition, as part of that guideline, some priority areas will be identified where future parks can be. We'll be working with our parks department to, identify some priority locations where they think that the future parks or where there's deficiency of parks currently within the study area. And besides that, through our community amenity and contribution policy, one of the opportunities it provides is that developers in the future will also have the opportunity to make contribution to park development or to provide cash in lieu for that. And by adopting some of the policies or future strategies that we will be considering in the course of this plan update process, we look forward to providing directions in terms of future development such that there will be more dedication to green spaces and opportunities for parks in future development. So these are some of the things that the update seeks to address as we work in line with the various strategies like the biodiversity conservation strategy, urban forest strategy, among others, and engaging with the public. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Abiola. So the next question is, what about 15-minute communities for Gordon Head beyond Majestic 10-mile point? There are no services for these areas without driving. Why is density concentrated in the Mount Ptolemy community? So a couple elements to that answer is we do have our official community plan direction around concentrating the majority of growth in our centers, corridors, and villages, which there happens to be, a concentration of those in the Shelbourne Valley area. So these are the areas that are close to existing amenities and services, are served by frequent or rapid transit routes, and also have high quality active transportation facilities. So there's a lot of benefits to having a new development in these areas where there is that existing infrastructure to support that. Having said that, those areas of Gordon Head are something we're looking at from a 15-minute community lens, and that's particularly through our project that looks at secondary corridors and neighborhood hubs. So we'll be taking there'll be a project to do that will likely be with the terms of reference likely going to council in December for that, and that really look at all those areas of Saanich inside the urban containment boundary, but outside of the centers, corridors, and villages, so our neighborhood areas, and how can we integrate additional commercial services in those areas through different hubs, and then also looking at a bigger diversity of housing options. The next question is kind of more of a bit of a comment, and I'll maybe try to respond to it a bit. But Saanich has failed to reach its emission reductions ever, and continues the trend. The biodiversity plan is inadequate, mostly supporting volunteer groups to remove invasive species. The funds you describe are totally inadequate to undertake successful environmental action. Furthermore, the rapid development supported by Saanich is making decreasing emissions and increasing biodiversity impossible. Yeah, so it's something that I think there definitely is a lot of attention to. Is this concern around how are we going to meet our greenhouse gas emission reduction goals, and how are we going to preserve biodiversity in our community? So a lot of the ways that we can work towards achieving those emission reduction goals, not only in Saanich, but as a region, is to really focus a lot of our growth in more energy efficient building forms and in areas that are well serviced by transit and active transportation options. Right now in Saanich, about 60% of our housing stock is single family homes, which are the most resource intensive types of developments. So there is the ability to concentrate some of those other developments to provide people more choices in forms that are really better at achieving some of those climate goals. From a biodiversity perspective, as Abiola has alluded to, we just finished our biodiversity conservation strategy, which really provides us a good basis to move forward with action. But there definitely is some work to be done to implement some of those tools, not only in terms of retaining habitat spaces, but also looking at ways that we can incentivize more tree retention as part of new development. So that's something we're working quite closely with our Parks Department on right now to try to figure out. But I think one of the key things is a lot of these areas, there's those inevitable conflicts and trade-offs that have to be mediated and ultimately decided by council.
Okay, I'll respond to another question talking about how we are responding to feedback, and emphasize that a lot of comments are feeling not heard. So we receive all the feedbacks and we respond in various ways. I'll first mention some of the medium which we could use to communicate to the public. So for this project, our major will be engaging the public both online and offline. And the main online platform that we'll be using to reach out to the public is a Hello Signage page. And I have that right here on my screen, including the project page as well as the Hello Signage page. These two pages will be updated periodically to provide latest information on events and the next steps for the project. Like I earlier mentioned, we encourage that every member who is interested in this project should follow the Hello Signage page so that you can receive notification regarding changes and any progress that has been made on this project. And at this stage of the plan updates, which is the evaluation phase, we'll be receiving multiple feedbacks. We will receive feedbacks via the survey. I will also post the project email on the chat, which is available on both the project page as well as the Hello Signage page. And we also have a phone number that you can reach us on to express your opinion regarding the plan. And in addition to the online survey and participating in webinars, there's also the opportunity to come in to one of our open house events next week and the week after, where you can also share your thoughts about the plan. And all of these feedbacks that we receive will inform the development of the draft plan. So currently, no decision has been made in terms of what update or changes is going to happen to the Shelbourne Valley Action Plan. However, it will be informed based on the feedbacks that were received from engaging with the public, and that will lead us to develop a draft plan, which will bring back to the public again in the fourth phase, which is a refinement phase for you to have a look at the plan and share your comments as well before a final proposed plan will be presented to council later in summer of next year. Thank you.
Thanks, Biola. And just to maybe kind of add to that last response, I think we will be doing engagement summary reports, which summarize all of this information, and you'll be able to see what's there. I think it's a challenge with some of these processes, and sometimes we get conflicting perspectives. So it's definitely important for us to share that information and then try to mediate some of those responses. So the next question kind of combines some of the feedback that we received, and I'll read it out and then maybe talk about it, a general response. So the Parliamentary Budget Officer stated today that Canada's housing shortage will decrease by 45% by 2026, given the decrease in immigration the government has announced. This decreases the number of houses needed in Saanich by 45% and highlights the hysteria that has led to current zoning changes. Decreasing population growth is essential to have any hope of decreasing emission and preserving biodiversity. And then a couple of kind of related questions. Will Saanich reconsider its zoning and push to increase housing at a rate which only makes sense if huge population growth through immigration continues at rates not seen in any other developed country? How does the province's new override of density control affect the plan? And how is Saanich responding to the housing crisis? So a lot embedded there, but a lot of it is related to the existing housing issues, what our projections are in terms of what our housing needs are now and into the future, and then how does the provincial elements layer into that. So I guess I'll say a couple things around there. One, we do have a provincial housing target that we're mandated to meet. Um, and if we don't meet that, then there's the potential that the province could take over some of our authority in terms of zoning and land use planning. So that's a pretty clear mandate we have to meet, and it would involve roughly a tripling of our historic development volumes or housing production volumes. So there's that reality we're dealing with. All of the data we have um, at this present time, and totally appreciate that we're in a dynamic environment where we may have to recalibrate, indicates some really acute housing needs in the community, and that's exhibited by the rental vacancy rates, supply on the market right now, the availability of affordable housing, all of these things. So there's clear needs in the community that need to be met. Some of that supply, but some of it's also looking at that diversity and affordability of housing. So we need to look at that on multiple fronts. And in terms of how we're responding to the housing crisis, plans like this are quite important to that, but there's a multitude of different actions that are required to make progress on that. So it's everything from improving our permitting processes to be clearer and quicker so we can support that delivery of housing, supporting having specific policies or regulations to support the delivery of specific housing needs. So things like our rapid deployment for non-market housing, which allows affordable non-market housing provided by a not-for-profit agency to proceed without rezoning as long as it's in alignment with our official community plan. And then a number of other smaller policy components that work in tandem with these land use plans. So I think, Abiola, you have the next one there. And maybe just to think, will Saanich reconsider our push for housing? Right now, we have a pretty clear mandate, and our data is telling us one thing. We need to continually evaluate that information and consider if any course corrections are needed.
Yeah, I have a question here regarding can you review how seniors are being accommodated? Will there be village centers or accessibility considerations? So one of the objective of the update is to provide a variety of housing options for different ages and abilities as well as income groups. Um, Through working with other policies within the district of Saanich, like the housing strategy, and also with our housing division, we will be looking at the various housing options within our centers and corridors as well as the villages. One of the things that we'll be doing is to look at identifying areas where we can have accessible housing or some sort of potential development for affordable housing as well. We'll also be working with non-profit housing providers to see how the viability of development of non-profit and accessible housing within the districts for the various age groups. So this is not a one there's not a one fixed solution to it, but through collaboration with the members of the public as well as other departments within the districts, we look forward to put forward policies that will support all of this. And one of the policy that we have on ground also is the community amenity contribution policy, which through that we look forward to get more additional contribution towards provision of affordable housing in the district. But with regards to accessibility in village centers, the plan will work in tandem with the active transportation plan to ensure that there is accessibility features that is available for all ages and abilities to be able to access various spaces within these geographies. So part of the priorities of this update is to ensure that our centers are developed in such a way that all age, all abilities have the ability to be able to move around safely. And this is also part of the overarching objectives of the official community plan. So this update provides an opportunity for us to look at these issues and to put forward potential solutions and way forward to be able to achieve them. Thank you.
Okay, a couple traffic related questions here. Have you considered taking actions to move traffic away from the Shelbourne Valley, i.e. Cedar Hill Road, Shelbourne Road, and Richmond? So I think a couple responses to that is I think there are limited route options. The routes we have are kind of the routes we have, and I think they'll continue to be used to that function. Certainly, there's opportunity to maybe extend a bit into Oak Bay, depending what your destination are. But those are the three um, easiest, most direct routes. I think a lot of the focus is how do we move people? Maybe not, like and part of that is, are there more efficient ways to maybe have some trips taken by transit, cycling or walking? So part of that is, are those services within an easy distance, and then are those options a uh, comparable or favorable alternative to a personal vehicle? So we recognize that there'll be always a large number of trips taken with a personal vehicle, but if we can provide those other modes in a way that makes an attractive option, we can help to shift off some of those things in a way that's more efficient in terms of the use of our road space. The next question is, are you then considering turn lanes and advanced greens for turning? Yeah, so many instances there will be turn lanes and or advanced greens for turning, and it all depends on kind of the specific intersection and design. But certainly anywhere where there's a lane reduction, and we tried to minimize that as part of the design of Shelbourne Street, there would be turn lanes because there's access that's needed to different points along Shelbourne Street. The next kind of transportation related question is, why is there not more focus on infrastructure first to support the new buildings? Why not add bike and bus lanes on the outside of Mackenzie and Quadra rather than taking away lanes? So this question kind of bleeds into the Quadra Mackenzie process, where there was examination of a potential different design of Mackenzie and Quadra. So I think there's an evaluation that's taken with each project. Certainly, as I mentioned before, one of the things we're really trying to emphasize is moving more people, and part of that, the most efficient way to do that is often with transit. But every situation is different, and I think with that project in particular, we've heard a lot of feedback, so we'll be evaluating that feedback and assessing potential options to move forward. And I think for Mackenzie and Quadrant and a lot of other streets in Saanich, there's just a limited amount of space, and there's challenging trade-offs that need to be made in terms of how we allocate that space. Yeah, and longer term, we often have more options as properties redevelop, but that's a very incremental process that takes a longer period of time. The next question, with respect to the 330-300 guideline, what qualifies as green space? So that's probably the 300 portion, where if you're trying to be within 300 meters walk of a green space. So for us, that primarily is a designated park. So it isn't necessarily a boulevard or anything like that, but it's a designated park that we would see as kind of the ideal thing that would be what we'd be evaluating that criteria against. Next question related to housing. Affordable subsidized housing would be amazing. How do you propose we do that? Builders will not build unless they can get a return on their investment through charging market rates. To get subsidized rental units requires someone to fund the difference. Do we expect Saanich to fund all the subsidized rental units? It's a really good question, and a big challenge for us, particularly as Canada and BC. There hasn't been a significant investment in affordable housing for some time. That's starting to change. Really, the way for us to get affordable housing is through not-for-profit organizations. Market developments struggle to provide affordable housing. So really, there needs to be a direct subsidy, and most commonly that is from federal or provincial governments. In Saanich, we have a couple levers. We have our processes, and how can we make the processes easier for non-market developers than market developers, and we've taken a number of steps to go down that road. And then we also have abilities to waive certain fees, like our development cost charges, and provide grant funding to help with some costs, fairly modest, but things like our affordable housing fund can make a big difference for certain projects. There is the opportunity to have below market housing units, which are maybe not the same as deeply affordable units, as part of larger projects. So something like University Heights does have below market rental rates, but those are often fairly modest deductions from the market. So in the order of like 15 to 20%. So they're helpful, but for a lot of the folks in our community, it's really that not-for-profit housing that is the critical piece. The next question is related to our provincial housing targets. Are micro suites included in the units mix? So the provincial targets are a absolute number of new units over 5 years, but there's also certain targets for rental units, affordable housing, affordable units, and 3-bedroom units, which are kind of that more family-oriented housing. So I think in some ways the provincial targets speak to the micro units by saying we need a diversity of units and a certain number of the 3-bedroom units, which we know are suitable for families with children or larger households or intergenerational households. So it's addressed in that way. A general feeling that developers' feedback gets higher priority than that of residents, and that there is no amount of market rate housing that can be built that will convince the commercial landlords to lower the rents they demand. So yeah, I mean, I guess all to say that feedback from everyone is important, and certainly for us, the developers are oftentimes the most critical implementers of the plan. So it's important to understand their perspective, and we require them to act upon the policies in the plan to create new housing and employment opportunities. So certainly those conversations are important, but also getting some of the local knowledge from the community is also important. So try to balance that out. And it's fortunate that you feel like they may be given higher priority, but we certainly do thoroughly consider all the feedback we get. And then a kind of general comment around that market rate housing is not going to solve all our problems, and it won't lower rent. So I think there's a couple things there. Is totally agree. We need a diversity approaches. We definitely need that affordable housing to address certain demographics. But we also know that our current supply is at an unhealthy level, and that needs to increase. How much that will ameliorate all our housing issues is open for discussion, but we know that currently there's not a healthy amount of supply. So that's one of the levers that we're definitely looking at, is how can we provide better supply. And as I mentioned before, 60% of our housing stock in Saanich is single-family homes, which are not at the price point or unit size that's suitable for every household. So one of our biggest points is not only increasing that overall supply, but providing a greater diversity of options to kind of meet people at different stages of their lives. Next question is, can we do away with the policy currently in the Shelbourne Valley Action Plan that states that site-specific changes to height and land use can occur if the projects advance overall objectives and provide significant community contributions? This has been abused in general practice and is open to wide interpretation. Yeah, so good question. Certainly something we as staff have heard a lot about. This is one that I think we definitely need to revisit, because I think it probably doesn't provide that optimal level of clarity around future development in the community. So it's certainly one we're committed to evaluating and seeing if we can come up with a land use framework that allows us to address our future needs, but provides perhaps a bit more certainty around that. So yeah, certainly something we've heard loud and clear, and something we realize we need to address. So I think that's the majority of the questions. I know there's a number of comments, and certainly thank you for sharing those. And things that folks are feel strongly about. So thanks for sharing that. Thanks for the good questions. Before we kind of conclude here, I just want to say thank you for everyone for sharing their time here. This is just the beginning stages of this particular update process. The survey will be available on Monday if you want to start providing your feedback. You can also send in any comments about specific issues at any time. And Abiola, correct me if I'm wrong, is that svp@saanich.ca?
Are you referring to the email?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's svp@saanich.ca.
Yeah, and you can also sign up at Hello Saanich for notifications as well. So thanks for attending, and we look forward to seeing a number of you at open houses or future meetings. And yeah, please let your neighbors know, let anyone that might have interest in this area know, and yeah, I encourage you to either send an email or complete the survey to provide feedback. So thank you very much for spending time with us today.